I bought the house for quiet. That was the whole point. Silence so complete I could finally hear myself think. But the first photo I posted, a dawn shot of the deck disappearing into fog, ended up in the family chat. 10 minutes later, my mother texted, bright and decisive. "Wonderful, darling. Julian and Bree can move in by Friday." By Friday, they arrived with suitcases, a crib, and a locksmith. I thought I was claiming my first Christmas for myself. Instead, I had stepped into a plan inked with my name, only not in my handwriting. I'm Faith Stewart. By day, I build narratives for other people. At Redwood Meridian, a careful little kingdom that smells like cold brew and quiet ambition, I'm the strategist who finds a product's core truth and spins it into something clean, strong, desirable. I'm good at sanding chaos into intention. Maybe I learned that at home. I live in a glass and concrete condo that stares at the harbor. I chose it precisely because it looks nothing like where I grew up. Home was Maple Bridge, Connecticut. 3 perfect stories with white shutters and a lawn that seemed vacuumed, not mowed. The kind of house magazines shoot in October because the maples turn to liquid gold and the symmetry looks like a promise. But symmetry is only another version of control. Our family liked to pretend we were a constellation. My parents, Gregory and Celeste, the gravity. My brother, Julian, 4 years older, the blazing sun. And me, a cold little moon on the far edge of the system. Only my grandmother, Nana Ruth, ever saw me without distortion. The walls of that house were not walls. They were a shrine to Julian. His first lacrosse stick preserved like a relic. Model UN plaques in a perfect ascending staircase. Framed varsity letters. My things. Debate ribbons, honor roll certificates. A regional journal with my first poem. Lived in a brown banker's box under the basement stairs next to holiday ornaments we never used. My accomplishments didn't match the decor. Erasure begins as a habit, and then becomes a tradition. It always sharpened at Christmas. "Faith, honey, we thought you had plans with your city friends." It was so last minute, completely slipped our minds. "You're so independent. We always know you're fine." Polite translations of the one line I learned by heart. "We did not think of you." I can track the origin point. I was 10, a bright, cold Saturday. The kitchen smelled of maple syrup and butter. Julian had a big game. My mother stood at the stove pouring pancake batter into a perfect, oversized J, intent as a painter with a first stroke. I waited at the island stool while the clock above the stove ticked each second like a drop in an empty room. When she didn't look up, I climbed down, got the bread, made toast. Dry, scratchy, tasteless, but it acknowledged me when nothing else did. It refined itself as we aged. In high school, I won a regional writing prize. The first time pride felt solid in my chest. I came home with the certificate and a crisp $100 check. My mother was sorting mail. "That's nice, dear," she said, barely glancing. "While you're here, could you proofread Julian's college essay?" He stuck on the conclusion, "You're so good with words." My victory wasn't mine. It became another line item in his ascent. I wasn't the writer, I was the unpaid editor. The first great holiday erasure, the one that broke something quietly but permanently, came my first year of college. I had a train ticket home. A week before, my father called. "Change of plans, Faith. We're flying to Palm Beach to see your aunt. Too expensive to add another ticket now. You understand? We'll see you at New Year's." I understood. I canceled the ticket, ate ramen in a deserted dorm, watched old movies while snow huddled on windowsills. In January, I visited Nana. On her fridge, beneath a cheerful magnet, was the Stewart family Christmas card. My parents and Julian grinning by the living room fireplace in matching red sweaters, dated December 24. They hadn't gone anywhere. They just hadn't wanted me there. No tears, just the cold click of a door shutting without drama. You learn to cope or you dissolve. I chose hypercompetence. Build a life that requires no invitation, then stop asking. Each December, I designed a solo campaign. Flights to places where snow was certain and families were abstract. The expensive bottle of wine for myself. The perfect roast for one. a calendar with no blank spaces. Just in case. I trained my senses to new signals. Oranges studded with cloves, that forever scent of other people's holidays, become noise through a closed door. I chose peppermint, clean, crisp, uncomplicated. Peppermint tea, peppermint bark, peppermint lotion on my desk. The fragrance of boundaries. Quiet I earned for myself. At Redwood Meridian, momentum is an instrument, and I conduct it. For 6 months, we'd been rebuilding Tideline Outdoors, once proud, then khaki and knots nobody wanted. My strategy was, find your signal. Not conquering summits, but finding a clear moment in the static. We launched a digital-first campaign in late summer. Today was the review. I stood at the head of the glass boardroom. Harbor fog pressed against the windows. Clients filled a pixelated screen. I advanced the final slide. In conclusion, I said, steady, the campaign has not just met but exceeded every metric. We reached the 12-month engagement projection in 90 days. The 18 to 25 demographic is up over 400%. Facts. Then silence. We had won. That Friday, Arthur called me in. Faith, I won't waste your time with platitudes. Tideline is ecstatic. The board is ecstatic. He slid a heavy cream envelope across the desk. Your standard raise hits in January. This is effective immediately. The check was made out to me. $85,000. The number blurred. Not a number, an opening door. Thank you, I said. You earned it, he replied. Enjoy your weekend. My reflex was to call my parents, then to crush it. If I told them, they'd manage to place Julian in the center by minute 3. Last month, my father had texted a link to an MBA program. Have you considered grad school, like your brother? He had consulting gigs, and my parents still paid his car insurance. My $85,000 would be a nice start before the conversation returned to his potential. My team took me for tacos, Priya, Gabe, and Luce, my true colleagues. We laughed, ate, raised beers. After an hour, I slipped outside into the damp coastal air and called Nana. This is the Queen, she answered. I told her the numbers, the client's delight, the bonus. Well, she said after a bright silence, it's about time they noticed. I'm proud of you, kiddo. You built it yourself. That was the validation. Now go back to your party. I went home and couldn't sleep. The money and savings, added to what I'd already hoarded, looked less like a nest egg and more like an escape hatch. I opened my laptop. Zillow, my late-night pastime. Usually I toured minimalist lofts, but months immersed in Tideline's granite and pine had rewilded some part of me. On impulse, I typed, High timber, small town, Elk Crest Range, 3 hours inland. Cabins, sad ranches, scroll, then stop. An A-frame, pure geometry, matte black, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, a massive deck. Listing, Elk Crest Realty. It was nearly midnight. I called the agency expecting a recording. Elk Crest Realty, Maya Linwood speaking. Awake. Professional. I'm calling about the A-frame on Kestrel Ridge, I said. I know it's late. City folks always call late. She smiled into the line. That's when dreams clock in. Want to walk through right now? I'm 10 minutes away. A FaceTime request buzzed. I accepted. Maya's face framed by a parka. Okay, Faith, let's buy a house. Her camera turned. Keys. The door swung open. Lights on. The far wall was glass, valley beyond, ceilings peaked and timbered, pine floors warm as honey. Stone fireplace floor to ceiling. A galley kitchen, a downstairs bedroom, a spiral stair to a loft that looked over the room. I asked about the view from the big windows. She stepped outside. Wind roared into my speaker. This is the deck, she said, panning darkness and distance, a scatter of lights far below. Enormous, suspended. The valley a blue, cold secret. Isolated. Magnificent. It's a lot, I managed. It is, she said. Not for everyone, but the bones are good. We hung up. I sat in my gray condo's silence and finally asked the question I'd been dodging my entire life. Can I imagine waking up there alone and feeling safe? I pictured Maple Bridge, people everywhere, always the hum of Julian's needs, erasure layered like dust. Then I pictured the A-frame, single road, stone fireplace, deck staring into nothing. The answer wasn't a thought, it was a loosening in my chest. Yes. Next morning, I didn't call a mortgage broker. I formed High Pine LLC for a small filing fee. High for the mythic bird that calms wind and waves. Pine for the sentries around the house. The deed would be the LLC's, not mine. Utilities, too. A boundary in corporate law. I opened a business account and wired the $85,000 plus savings. At 9:01 a.m., I called Maya. I'm making an offer. You haven't even smelled the air. She laughed. I saw what matters, I said. All cash, 21-day close through the LLC. She snapped professional in an instant. Okay, Faith, let's get it done. I offered 10 below asking to an estate that wanted speed. They countered at 5 above that. I stared at the email. This was the click, the first unpermitted choice of my life, and typed, accepted. 3 weeks, days at Redwood, nights signing documents, reading inspections, wiring funds. I told no one. Meanwhile, I typed a creed into my notes app. Keys, mine. Address, private. Mail, P.O. box. Access, invite only. Closing was a Friday in late November. The title office smelled like toner. 3 sharp-toothed brass keys slid into my hand, heavier than they looked. I drove up alone in my sedan, not a moving truck. Toolkit in the trunk, 2 down pillows, a sleeping bag, a duffel. A thermos of black coffee. A playlist called Different December. Cellos and quiet pianos, the sound of purpose. By sunset, the A-frame's black triangle cut into a bruised purple sky. I unlocked the door. The house smelled of cedar and stale air. My footsteps boomed. I inflated an air mattress in the center of the great room facing the glass and the stone hearth. It was miserably cold. I coaxed the gas fireplace alive. Blue flames licked stone while the wall of glass inhaled every bit of heat. Fully dressed in the sleeping bag, a hollow ache opened in my chest. The ache of being the only adult in the room. The furnace, the warmth, the next hour's comfort. No one else to call, no one to blame. Strangely, that truth felt less like a burden and more like a foundation. I fell asleep watching flames until my breath no longer fogged. My life split cleanly. Weekdays in Harborview. Sharp, focused, leading meetings. 5 o'clock. The 3-hour drive up the mountain. Work until my eyes quit. Sleep on air. Up at 5 to head back. Coffee and adrenaline. Those first weeks were labor. Sanding dark cherry cabinets until sawdust lived in my lashes. My shoulders burned as pale raw wood emerged like skin shed. I replaced sickly brass globes with sleek track lighting, learning wiring diagrams by phone glow. When warm white flooded the kitchen, I nearly cried. I swapped flimsy deadbolts for heavy smart locks, chiseled frames for reinforced plates, set a master code only I knew, enabled an entry log that recorded every touch. The bolt's solid thunk was the sound of security I'd never had. I bought a real mattress, a deep sofa, 2 identical wooden bed frames for the upstairs rooms. I built them myself with an Allen wrench and a small hammer, tightening every bolt. Not rooms for people I was obligated to host. Not museums for someone else's achievements. These were rooms for people I chose. People like me who'd spent too many holidays as afterthoughts. Flannel sheets. Thick duvets. I stood in a doorway and just breathed. One clear, freezing night, I wrapped 300 feet of warm white string lights around the entire deck rail. My fingers went numb. When I plugged the last cord, the deck glowed like a ship hung over black water. A mug of tea in hand, I looked down at the valley, dark as a sleeping animal, and felt watched over by my own small light. At High Timbers Grocery, a cashier with kind eyes glanced at my cart. Coffee, eggs, cleaning supplies. You moving in? Just closed on the A-frame on Kestrel, I said. Her face brightened. The cedar A-frame, you got it. Good bones. We wondered who'd give it love. I'm trying, I smiled. Welcome to High Timber, she said. 30 seconds. The first time I'd been welcomed someplace not as Julian's sister, but as me. Good bones. I needed to test whether the house could hold joy or if it was only a fortress. I invited Priya, Gabe, and Luce up for a trial weekend. They arrived on a Friday, stamping snow, arms full of board games and groceries. Priya announced chili. Gabe chopped vegetables. Luce handled cornbread. The kitchen I'd painted filled with noise. Onions sizzling, friendly arguments over which game first. We ate on the floor around the coffee table because the dining table hadn't arrived. And then we laughed. Big and unguarded, ricocheting off beams. The house held it. Our quiet place, not only mine. Morning coffee on the deck, sunrise pinking the ridge. Priya came out wrapped in a blanket, sat without talking. Faith, she whispered finally, this place is magic. Before they left, I FaceTimed Nana and toured her through the house. Backsplash looks like ribbon candy, she crackled. Cheerful. On the deck, I turned the camera to the view. You built your own mountain, she said, voice thick. I'm proud. It's a start, I said. That night, alone again, I posted 3 photos to my private Instagram. The deck at dawn above an ocean of fog. My favorite mug on the sofa arm, hearth blurred. A corner of flame. Caption: bought myself a quiet place. Then I turned off my phone and slept like a stone. Morning. Coffee and pine air. 9 full hours. For the first time as an adult, I felt completely settled. Then I turned my phone on. The Stewart family updates thread, usually a graveyard of bond yield articles and blurry rose bushes, was blazing. Someone, my mother, had screenshotted my private post and dropped it in. The deck. The caption. Whose house is this? An aunt asked. Where did you go? A cousin. Then the payload. From my mother, bright, cheerful, lethal. Wonderful news. Faith bought a mountain getaway. Perfect timing. Julian and Belle need space with the baby coming and their lease is up. We'll bring the nursery things on Friday. So blessed. Not a question. Not, would you consider? A proclamation. My house, the one I'd bled for, declared a crown colony of Julian. My father chimed in like a legal disclaimer. It is prudent to consult family before purchases of this magnitude. Faith, we need to discuss tax implications and liability. We. Then Julian sent a thumbs up and a photo from a U-Haul unit. Flattened boxes stacked high. The top scrawled, nursery. My heart should have thundered. It didn't. It stayed steady while heat leached from my hands. This wasn't confusion. It was annexation. My quiet had been rezoned into Julian's annex in 10 minutes. A solo text from my mother arrived, the private directive behind the public announcement. So glad we're on the same page. Christmas at your place, non-negotiable. Don't worry, we'll cover groceries. The audacity of non-negotiable, as if she were my CEO and not the woman who had professionally forgotten me for 2 decades. The grocery gesture, classic Stewart, invade wildly, then cushion with petty generosity, as if buying potatoes bought rights to my deed. I drafted and deleted the soft refusals I'd been trained to produce, then typed 3 words. No, I've made other plans. Send. The heaviest sentence of my life. 2 minutes later, my phone rang. Gregory. I let it chime twice, tasted peppermint, answered. He used the boardroom voice, calm, reasonable, implying the rest of us were hysterical. I saw your text to your mother. She's upset. Silence is my turf now, in my house. This isn't a game, he continued, annoyance creeping in. Your brother's lease is ending. You bought a 3-bedroom. Simple alignment of resources. Be useful. Not generous, not kind. Useful. I matched his tone. I understand Julian's situation. However, my house is not his solution. No one is moving in. That is final. Please do not come uninvited. He inhaled a sharp, insulted breath. "We'll see about this." Click. I moved without shaking. Screenshots of the group chat, my mother's directive, my 3-word reply, the call log with my father's incoming call and duration. I uploaded them all into a new encrypted folder in my cloud drive. Deck boundaries. This wasn't a disagreement. It was a hostile takeover. I was building a record. My phone rang again. "Nana, I just got off with your mother," she said, no preamble. "She's in hysterics. Says you bought a mansion and locked her out. Won't let them come for Christmas." "Nana," I said flatly. "I bought a small A-frame. Within an hour, they decided to move Julian and Belle in." A small, sharp snort. "Of course. A vacuum hates emptiness, and your family hates you having anything that isn't for them. Don't let them bully you." "I don't plan to," I said, looking at the deck boundaries folder. "Good. You owe them nothing. If they drive up anyway, and they will, do not open that door. You lock it and call the sheriff. Tell them you have uninvited trespassers. You understand?" The words sheriff and trespassers rang through the pines. Brutal. And the most honest validation I'd ever received. "I understand. I'm a strategist. You don't just call the sheriff. You prepare the ground. You strip ambiguity so the facts are cold. Simple." I searched high timber property litigation. Winters Legal. Granite and Ice website. Tagline, clarity, strategy, resolution. I called. "Sable Winters," came a voice as precise as the site. "Ms. Winters, I'm Faith Stewart, managing member of High on Pine LLC, owner of Kestrel Ridge. I need a 1-hour consult regarding trespass and occupancy rights. I'm available today. 2 p.m. Bring your operating agreement and deed." I spent 4 hours printing. The chats, the non-negotiable, the nursery boxes. Her office was above a gear shop. Quiet, charcoal walls, 2 abstract winterscapes. A woman in her 40s in a dark wool dress. No handshake. "Ms. Stewart, you have a property issue." "I have a family issue trying to become a property issue," I said, setting the black folder on her desk. I gave her the history of erasure in 5 minutes, then the Instagram post, then the deluge. She read every screenshot like a scientist with a slide. "This is not uncommon up here," she said. "Money, entitlement, second homes. Combustible. Tap on my mother's text. Presumptive. Tap on Julian's photo. Complicity. Tap on my father's message. Economic coercion." I exhaled. Finally, a diagnosis. "You have 2 key advantages," she said. 1, the LLC. He on Pine owns the asset. You're the managing member, critical legal distance. 2, you've issued a clear, written no. I told her Nana's advice. "Your grandmother is correct. We'll optimize the call. We'll file a formal no-trespass letter with the sheriff today naming Gregory, Celeste, and Julian. Recorded against your parcel. If they show up, you're not a hysterical daughter. You're a representative of an LLC reporting a violation of a recorded notice. Police hate ambiguity. We'll remove it." We drafted the letter. Polite, formal, terrifying. Parcel number, LLC name, barred individuals, criminal trespass language. "Filed by 4 p.m., she said. "What else?" I asked. "You're a strategist," she said. "Reinforce the perimeter." I tightened the physical ones first. At home, I angled the driveway camera to catch plates, the porch camera to cover the door, turned audio on. I rotated my master code. I wrote a guest policy for the LLC. Invitation by dates only. No standing invites. No subletting or mail forwarding. Unauthorized access logged and reported. Printed it on heavy cream cardstock and posted it on the entry closet's inside door. First armor, corporate. Deed and utilities under the LLC. P.O. box for mail. Second, physical. Locks, plates, cameras. Third, legal. No trespass recorded. Last, declaration. I emailed my parents and Julian, BCC, Winter's legal. Subject: Christmas plans, Kestrel Ridge property. I stated clearly the house was a private residence, not available for guests or move-in, that I had other plans, that attempts to access would be denied. Signed, Faith Stewart, Managing Member, High Pine LLC. Send. Silence. The surf pulling back. I installed a heavier strike plate on the side door with 3-inch screws biting deep into the stud. The deadbolt's final click sounded like steel spelling no. December 23rd, 7:42 p.m. I was reading by the fire when the camera app pinged. Motion. Driveway. Headlights crept up the gravel. A large dark SUV. Doors opened. My mother clutched in her coat. My father stiff as a chairman. Julian already hauling luggage. Belle slow with her 3rd trimester weight. And a 5th man, work jacket, long metal toolbox, looking cold and ashamed. They walked to the porch. Doorbell chimed. I did not move. I pressed the doorbell mic. This is private property. You are not authorized. Please leave. My mother flinched, found the camera, poured sugar. Faith, honey, open up. It's freezing. Don't be silly. We brought a smoked ham. As if there were a password. The locksmith looked to my father. The smart lock, Gregory said. The drill came out. That was the line. I called the county's non-emergency line. This is Faith Stewart, Managing Member of High Pine LLC at Kestrel Ridge, I said calmly. Active trespass. We have a recorded no-trespass letter, record 309B, naming Gregory, Celeste, and Julian Stewart. They have brought a locksmith and are attempting to drill the deadbolt. The dispatcher's tone sharpened. Are you safe? Yes. Doors are reinforced. They are attempting property damage. Patrol car en route. Please do not engage. I watched the locksmith's drill whine against the reinforced steel that refused to budge. Julian stepped forward, pounded the frame with his fist. Stop being dramatic, he yelled. We're here. The plan is set. Open the door. Belle winced, palm on belly. Julian, stop, she whispered. He didn't. Red and blue washed the porch. A patrol car crunched to a stop. A tall deputy stepped out, hat low, voice carrying. Evening, folks. Quite a party. What's the problem? My mother transformed into the trembling matriarch. Officer, this is our daughter's house. She's not well. We're worried. He looked at the suitcases, the crib, the tools. IDs, he said. My father bristled. This is a family matter. I see a property matter. Identification, now. He read the licenses, then his clipboard. Good news and bad news, he said, voice dry. Good news, I know exactly what this is. Bad news, this property is not owned by Faith Stewart. It's owned by High Pine LLC, which filed a no-trespass notice barring Gregory, Celeste, and Julian from this parcel. Silence. There are no family rights in criminal trespass, he told my mother when she sputtered. He asked the locksmith if he knew they weren't owners. The man shook his head, packed up fast, fled. This is outrageous, my father growled. You'll hear from our lawyers. That's your right, said the deputy. From a hotel. Tonight you're leaving. He handed a large envelope, your copy of the recorded notice, and stood with his arms folded as they loaded suitcases and crib. Taillights disappeared down the ridge. The deputy followed them to the main road. Inside, the silence expanded until my knees shook. Then a snowflake drifted past the deck light. Then another. The house had held. Christmas morning, the world remade in white. A foot of snow turned the A-frame into a snow globe. By 10, the house was full again. Priya, Gabe, Luce, arriving early with presents and food. We weren't letting you sit alone after that, Priya said, and we don't trust them not to try again. They won't, I said, feeling the solidity in the frame. Neighbors, Sarah from the Blue House and her husband Tom, knocked, bringing obscene cinnamon rolls. We brewed coffee, put on instrumental carols. exchanged small, perfect gifts. I gave my friends the guest room codes. "Whenever you need escape," I said. No asking. Peace, deep as sleep. Until Priya, scrolling, said carefully, "You should see this." My mother's Facebook post. "Feeling so blessed this Christmas morning. After so many challenges, a true Christmas miracle. Julian and Belle have found the perfect safe place to start their family. Moving day soon. Here's a peek at the nursery mood board. A location tag, High Timber Elk Crest Range. Blurred but obvious. Comments, congratulations, miracles, excitement. Not a retreat, a flanking maneuver. Build a public narrative in which my house was their benevolence." A DM buzzed from a former classmate. She'd overheard my father at their Connecticut club asking about Elk Crest property managers, using my parcel number, calling it his kid's property, asking about tenant management and upkeep. "Weird," she wrote. "Merry Christmas." Gabe, our data brain, glanced over everything. Phase 1 failed, physical occupation. They pivoted to Phase 2, administrative occupation. Facebook creates social expectation. Property manager inquiries create a quasi-legal vector to insert a third party who grants them access. Paper trail that you're not in control. They are. Cold logic clicked. Residency. Mail. On instinct, I logged into the county portal and mail forwarding site. There it was. A pending change of address from Julian and Belle to my P.O. box, filed 2 days earlier. If that cleared, they could build residency with driver's licenses and car registration. The locksmith and ham were just spectacle. This was the real invasion. I screenshotted everything and emailed Sable. Phase 2. Attempted residency via mail fraud. Public narrative of tenancy. Next move? She replied in under a minute. "Do not engage. This is attempted fraud. Tuesday, 9 a.m. Luce shook her head. "Criminal." "Control," I said. Nana texted one line. "Proud you didn't open the door." I washed mugs. This was never about Christmas. It was about a family system that treated my time, money, successes, and now home as assets to be allocated to Julian. I had committed their only unforgivable sin, a boundary. Tradition is just control in a prettier sweater. Tuesday at Sable's, she had news. While I tracked social, my father moved legal. She'd run a full check on the parcel and LLC. A new filing appeared yesterday. A scanned, informal family tenancy agreement, predated 2 weeks earlier, stating that he and Pine LLC, in consideration of family unity and support, granted indefinite tenancy to Julian and Belle. The LLC signature line bore my name in a looping hand I didn't own. Faith M. Stewart. "I don't have a middle initial," I whispered. "They invented one," Sable said. "It's forgery, clumsy but dangerous, aimed at clerks and counters, not judges." There were pings at DMV. Julian attempted to register a car to my mountain address using the sham agreement. Rejected because the owner didn't match. Utilities. 2 calls from my father's number to be added as a secondary responsible party because his daughter, the owner, was overwhelmed. Denied. He lacked the LLC's tax ID and password. Physical, digital, administrative, Sable said. "It's a siege. We move to offense." She laid out 4 moves. A certified cease and desist to each individual, detailing trespass, attempted mail fraud, attempted vehicle registration fraud, forged tenancy. Fraud notices to postmaster, DMV, registrar, and utilities. Freezing all changes and adding a verbal password only she and I knew. A certified warning to any lawyer or counsel they claimed, putting potential counsel on notice that actions could be complicity. And a petition for a temporary protective order, ready to file the second they breathed wrong. Outside in my car, Priya texted a screenshot of my mother commenting on an old friend's post. "We're so grateful our children will be safe up there." Up there. Vague, depersonalized, and annexations language. I forwarded it to Sable. "Got it," she replied. I realized the driveway and porch cameras weren't enough. I ordered a camouflaged battery trail cam with geofence to watch the mailbox cluster and side lot. If anything crossed the line, my phone would scream. I changed my emergency contacts. Deleted Mom, deleted Dad. Added Ice, Sable, Winters. The person to call in an emergency was no longer my family. It was my attorney. That was the real boundary. December 30th, 2:11 a.m. The new geofence alert shrieked me awake. I opened the feed, night vision green. A dark, familiar sedan idling by the mailbox cluster. The driver's door opened. My father. No suit now. Dark coat, face pale in infrared. He glanced up and down the empty road, then walked not to outgoing mail but to my locked box number 42, a stack of thick white envelopes in hand. He didn't have a key. He forced them through the narrow slot, jamming the box with his paperwork, serving me in the dark to fabricate delivery. Planting evidence. He smoothed his coat and drove away. At dawn, I unlocked the jammed box. 3 thick, unaddressed envelopes. Faith Stewart, scribbled on each. In my car with the heat on, I opened them. A household member affidavit to my insurer, declaring Julian and Belle now full-time residents to be added to my policy, signed by Gregory Stewart, property manager. The second, nearly identical to the High Timber HOA, which does not exist. The third, a letter informing me that, as property manager, he had taken steps to secure the asset on behalf of family stakeholders. I took razor-sharp photos of every page and downloaded the trail cam clip. Emailed Sable. Subject: urgent, 2:11 a.m. He planted. Her reply: this is the last piece, self-manufactured evidence loop. Filing emergency motion now with video and affidavit. By noon, she texted. Filed. Stamped. Active on the judge's desk. At 12:05, my mother messaged from a new number. We tried everything the nice way. You left us no choice. The old anthem. You made me do this. I screenshotted. Sable added it as a threat. I silenced their threads. Nana called, furious and crystalline. She told my mother she'd reap what she sowed and that if they set foot on my mountain again, she'd call Pastor Dale and the entire church circle to recite every detail: locksmith, forgery, midnight mailboxes, at bake sale volume. I laughed for the first time in a week. Tomorrow is New Year's Eve, Nana warned. They're dramatic. Do not be alone. I hear you, I said, already planning a different kind of defense. Witnesses. I invited neighbors Sarah and Tom. Hot cocoa, chili, open house. We'll bring the weird olive appetizer, she said. Priya, Gabe, Luce. Bring your loudest voices and worst board games. We are your social shields, Gabe replied. December 31st. The house smelled like cumin and garlic. I set up a hot cocoa bar. Marshmallows, shavings, peppermint sticks, whipped cream. My friends arrived, boots kicking snow, arms full of wine and chips. Perimeter is secure, Luce declared. Neighbors drifted in, drawn by light and music. Laughter climbed the rafters. For the entry table, I printed and laminated the recorded "No trespass" on one side and the clerk-stamped first page of the emergency motion on the other. I set it upright beside the mugs like a winter decoration. That's the coldest, most beautiful you I've ever seen, Priya said. It's just the guest policy, I answered. At 8:03 p.m., gravel groaned under heavy tires. 2 dark SUVs clawed up my drive. The room went still. Priya's hand found my shoulder. Gabe silently angled his phone and hit record. Doors slammed. My parents, Julian, pale, exhausted Belle, and a new man in a sharp blazer with an expensive briefcase. My father knocked, formal, impatient, a CEO's tempo. I opened the door. Cold air rushed in. They stared, surprised by a room of bright witnesses. The man stepped forward. Ms. Stewart, I'm Mr. Harrison, a family mediator retained by your parents to resolve this amicably. There's nothing to resolve, I said, loud enough for my guests. You are trespassing. You were served a legal notice to stay away." He lifted a hand, soothing. "That's not how we see it, nor the law." He produced a document. "A temporary occupancy agreement, predated, citing your consent for Julian and Belle to take residence." "I never consented," I said. "Ah," he said, tapping paper. "But you did. Consent by silence. Your failure to engage after a reasonable request constitutes tacit approval under family mediation guidelines. We're here to finalize the move-in." "Consent by silence," I repeated. Imaginative. Also desperate. I turned, picked up my laminated pages, and held them to the porch light. "This is the LLC deed. The owner is High Pine. This is the recorded no trespass naming you. This is the cease and desist cataloging attempted mail fraud. And this," I tapped the red county stamp, "is our emergency motion acknowledging your forged tenancy agreement." The mediator's smile faltered. I looked past him at my father. "Consent by silence isn't consent, Gregory. It's delusion. You do not live here." Julian, vibrating with the same old contempt, sneered. "Your little party and fake friends, cute. You're alone, Faith. We're a family." I didn't look at him. "I'm not alone," I said, then nodded into the shadowed entryway. "Officer, you can come in now." Deputy Miller stepped into the light. Uniform crisp, expression neutral. My family froze. My father went gray. The mediator swallowed hard. Sable had arranged a welfare standby. "Mr. and Mrs. Stewart, Mr. Julian Stewart," the deputy said, even and clear. "You are in violation of a recorded no trespass order and an active emergency petition. Any further attempt to enter this property, tamper with mail, or contact the owner will result in immediate arrest." He held out a thick envelope. "You are served." Gregory stared as if it might explode. My mother's performance cracked into a sob. She reached for Belle's hand, the last ally, another mother. Belle yanked away, tears bright in the porch light. "No," she whispered, voice shaking but firm. "I'm not having my baby in a house we stole. I'm going home." She slid into the SUV and slammed the door. My father tried the reasonable register one last time. "Faith, be reasonable." "I am," I said. "You're leaving my property now." The deputy gestured with his flashlight toward the dark driveway. They went. The mediator nearly ran. Taillights bled down the ridge and vanished. The room exhaled, one collective release. I stood in the doorway an extra beat, then closed the heavy wood door and turned the deadbolt. The reinforced thunk felt like a benediction. I turned back to my friends, my neighbors, my chosen family. I smiled, warm and real. As I was saying, hot cocoa on the deck. Who wants extra whipped cream? Thank you for listening. Tell me where you're watching from in the comments so we can connect. And if this story resonated with you, your boundaries, your peace, your right to choose your own life, please like, subscribe, and hit the bell so more people can hear it too.